Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take all that noise, all that information flying around, and try to boil it down to what you really need to know.
Get you properly informed.
Exactly. And today, wow, we are diving deep into the history of Iran, Persia, as it was known for so long. We're going from its almost unbelievably ancient beginnings.
Millennia back.
Right, through massive cultural shifts, political upheavals, right up to the complexities of modern Iran and its place in the world militarily.
It's quite a story.
It really is. And our mission here, using the sources you've provided, historical text, detailed analyses, is to pull out the key insights, the things that matter.
So you can quickly get a handle on this incredibly important region.
Yeah, because understanding this long, rich, often surprising history, well, it's crucial for understanding what's happening right now. So let's connect those dots.
Okay.
So a history this huge, thousands of years, where do you even start? Our sources point way back to settlements like Elam in the southwest. We're talking, what, 7,000 BCE?
Astonishing, isn't it? It really puts Iran among the cradles of civilization, one of the oldest continuous major civilizations.
Definitely. And from those roots, we get to a name maybe more familiar, the Achaemenid Empire. That's about 550 to 330 BCE.
Founded by Cyrus the Great, a huge figure.
And he leaves behind this thing, the Cyrus cylinder. Our sources say it's often called one of the first, maybe the first, Declaration of Human Rights. Think about that.
Yeah, the principles laid out there, tolerance, freedom for conquered peoples, were pretty revolutionary for the time, 2,500 years ago.
And the empire itself, it wasn't small.
Oh, not at all. It was vast. It stretched across 3 continents, Asia, Africa, parts of Europe, a true superpower of the ancient world.
Huge. How did they manage that?
Well, it wasn't just military might, though they had that. It was sophisticated administration, infrastructure like the Royal Road, and, as we mentioned, a policy of respecting local customs to a degree.
But even they couldn't last forever. Alexander the Great comes along in 330 BCE.
Right. The conquest by Alexander was a major turning point. But, and this is fascinating, it didn't extinguish Persian culture or identity. Not by a long shot.
Okay, so that resilience we talked about kicks in early. What comes next?
Well, after a period of Hellenistic rule under Alexander's successors, we see new Persian powers emerge. First, the Parthian Empire. They ruled from about 247 BCE to 224 CE.
And they're known for
successfully resisting Rome, which was no small feat. They were famed for their horse archers, the Parthian shot, firing backwards at a gallop, and had a more decentralized kind of feudal system.
Okay, tough opponents for Rome then.
Definitely. And after them, you get the Sassanian Empire from 224 to 651 CE. This was another great Persian power, maybe even a peak in some ways, culturally and militarily.
And they clashed with Rome too, or rather the Eastern Roman Empire by then.
Constantly. The Sassanians and the Byzantines were locked in this centuries-long struggle for dominance in the Middle East. Think of battles like Callinicum in 531 CE. Huge, drawn-out conflicts.
So these dynasties really cemented a distinct Persian identity after Alexander.
Absolutely. They reaffirmed it, built on it. But then comes another massive shift. The Arab conquests in the mid-7th century CE.
Right. 651 CE, the Sassanian Empire falls. Iran becomes part of the expanding Islamic world. That must have been a profound change.
It was a fundamental shift, politically and religiously. Islam gradually became the dominant religion.
But you mentioned Persian culture thriving earlier.
Yeah.
How did that work under Arab rule? Didn't it get suppressed?
That's what's so remarkable. It didn't. Persian culture, language, administrative practices, art. They didn't just survive. They heavily influenced the Islamic civilization itself, particularly during the Islamic Golden Age.
Really? How so?
Well, Persian became a major literary and administrative language across much of the Eastern Islamic world. We see this incredible flourishing of Persian poetry, think Ferdowsi Rumi later on. And Persian scholars like Avicenna, Ibn Sina, and Al-Farabi were giants in philosophy, medicine, science. Their work influenced Europe for centuries.
So it's less a suppression, more a fusion or a Persian Renaissance within the Islamic context.
Exactly. A Persian Renaissance is a great way to put it. They adopted Islam, but they also profoundly shaped the civilization that adopted them. It shows that incredible cultural depth and adaptability.
Okay, that makes sense. Then let's jump forward again. The Safavid Dynasty, 1501 to 1736. You said this was pivotal for modern Iran. Why?
Hugely pivotal. For 2 main reasons, really. First, the Safavids established Twelver Shia Islam as the official state religion.
And that's still the case today?
Precisely. This decision gave Iran a distinct religious identity, often setting it apart from its mostly Sunni neighbors, and has been a core element of Iranian identity and politics ever since.
Okay, that's huge. What's the second reason?
They unified Iran. They brought the country together as a single cohesive nation-state under centralized rule, arguably for the first time in centuries. They established a strong sense of Iranian nationhood again.
And their capital, Isfahan,
became this jewel, a center of art, architecture, philosophy. It really showcased the power and cultural brilliance of the Safavid era. Isfahan is half the world, the saying went.
Wow, okay, so Safavids. Shia's Islam as state religion, unified nation-state. Got it. But then things get more complicated again with the Qajar Dynasty, 1789-1925.
Yeah, the Qajar period sees, well, increasing pressure from the outside. You have the growing influence and interference of the British and Russian empires.
The Great Game.
Exactly. Iran found itself caught in the middle. It lost significant territories, particularly to Russia in the Russo-Persian Wars. And internally, the Qajar rule weakened over time. There were economic problems, concessions granted to foreigners.
So this sets the stage for change, for wanting something stronger, more modern.
Definitely. There's growing discontent, nationalist sentiment, and calls for reform and modernization, which leads us directly to the Pahlavi Dynasty, starting in 1925.
Founded by Reza Shah, and his focus was
modernization and centralization, building a strong, modern, secular nation-state. He pushed for infrastructure projects, railways, secular education, reforming the legal system, changing dress codes, a top-down transformation.
trying to build a sort of Western-style nation.
In many ways, yes. And his son, Mohammad Reza Shah, who took over during World War II, continued that, forging very close ties with the West, particularly the United States, after the 1953 coup.
But this modernization, it caused problems.
It did. While there were definite advances, the pace of change, the autocratic style of rule, the perceived erosion of traditional values and Islamic identity, and the Shah's suppression of dissent created deep resentment.
So the close ties with the West, like the U.S., became a source of contention too.
Very much so. It was seen by many as undermining Iran's independence and culture. This simmering discontent, fueled by economic issues and political repression, eventually boiled over.
Leading to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, our sources describe this as a massive popular movement led by Ayatollah Khomeini.
Right. It overthrew the Shah, ended the monarchy, and established the Islamic Republic, based on Khomeini's concept of vilayat-e-faqih guardianship of the Islamic jurist.
A complete transformation of the state.
Absolutely. A fundamental shift in Iran's political system, social structure, and its relationship with the rest of the world. It created the Iran we largely see today.
Okay. Now let's pivot slightly, but it connects directly. Iran's military. How does this long history shape its current military posture and thinking?
Well, if you think back, military strength has always been part of the Persian story. The Achaemenids had the Immortals, that elite 10,000-man unit. They were masters of logistics. Remember those pontoon bridges Herodotus wrote about? They could project power over vast distances.
Even if they didn't always win, like at Marathon against the Greeks.
True, but the capability was there. And the Sassanians, as we said, had powerful cavalry-centric armies that challenged the Byzantine Empire for centuries. There's a long tradition of sophisticated military organization and strategic thinking.
Okay, so that historical depth is there. Fast forward to the 20th century, the Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988. That seems like a defining modern conflict for Iran's military.
Utterly defining. Saddam Hussein invaded, thinking he could achieve a quick victory after the revolution. Instead, it turned into this brutal 8-year slog.
Our sources mention over 1 million casualties. Just devastating.
Horrific. And Iraq used chemical weapons extensively against Iranian soldiers and civilians. It was one of the longest conventional wars of the 20th century.
What was the impact on Iran beyond the terrible human cost?
It forged a strong sense of national unity in the face of attack, but also a deep sense of isolation and a belief in self-reliance. They felt abandoned by the international community. It heavily influenced their military doctrine, emphasizing deterrence, developing indigenous weapons, and asymmetric warfare capabilities.
Which brings us to today's military structure. Our sources talk a lot about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. What is that exactly?
The IRGC, or Sepeh-Pasdaran, is described as a major branch of the armed forces, but distinct from the regular army, the Artesh. It was formed after the revolution.
And its role?
It's seen as having a broad mandate. Not just defense, but also protecting the Islamic Republic system itself. Our sources state it controls key strategic programs, like the ballistic missile arsenal, runs cyber warfare units, and is heavily involved with regional allies and proxy forces.
And it's viewed differently internationally.
Very differently. As the sources note, countries like the United States have designated the IRGC as a foreign terrorist organization, citing its role in regional conflicts and support for certain groups. Iran, of course, rejects this vehemently.
Okay. And besides the IRGC, what about other capabilities? Missiles, drones?
Iran has developed a significant ballistic missile capability, including medium-range missiles that can reach parts of Europe and much of the Middle East. Drones have also become a major focus. They've used both missiles and drones in conflicts in places like Syria, Iraq, and reportedly supply them to groups in Yemen.
And the Navy. Given Iran's coastline, especially on the Persian Gulf.
Their Navy, particularly the IRGC Navy, specializes in what's called asymmetric warfare. Think small, fast boats operating in swarms, naval mines, anti-ship missiles. Tactics designed to counter larger, more conventional navies in the constrained waters of the Gulf.
And crucially, they control the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes, that's a major strategic factor. It's identified in our sources as a vital choke point for global oil shipments. Iran's ability to potentially disrupt traffic there gives it significant leverage.
So let's pull this all together. This incredible history, this resilience, the revolution, the modern military. What does it mean for understanding Iran today? Why should you, our listener, really care about these capabilities and this history?
Well, it means Iran is a deeply influential, complex, and, yes, often controversial player on the world stage. Its actions have major regional and global consequences.
And there's ongoing international focus, particularly on its nuclear program.
Right. That's been a source of tension for decades. It led to severe international sanctions, then the 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA, the U.S. withdrawal from it, and the ongoing uncertainty in negotiations.
And beyond the nuclear issue.
There are persistent disagreements and tensions with Western powers and regional rivals over its influence in places like Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. The sources also point to concerns raised internationally about its human rights record and its development of military technologies like missiles. Understanding the history we've discussed helps put all these current issues into context.
It really does. What a journey. We've gone from Elamite settlements 9,000 years ago, through Cyrus and his human rights ideas, the unifying Safavids shaping modern Iran's identity, the Pahlavi push for modernization, the huge shift of the 1979 revolution.
Right up to its current strategic position, its military capabilities, and its complex role in geopolitics.
And seeing that whole arc, that depth history, is just fundamental. You can't really grasp Iran's present or think about its future without understanding where it's come from, that resilience, that distinct cultural identity.
It reveals a nation that's constantly navigated immense internal change and external pressure, always adapting, always maintaining a core sense of self.
So as we wrap up, here's something for you to think about. Given Iran's long history of cultural endurance, its demonstrated resilience, its influential position in a critical region, and its control over somewhere as vital as the Strait of Hormuz, what might all that suggest about how its role could continue to evolve and shape the world in the 21st century?